everyone, and welcome to the Jeff Bullis Show. Today with me, James Oliver Jr. Now, James is the founder and CEO of ParentPreneur Foundation, which empowers Black Parentpreneurs so they can leave a legacy for their beautiful black children. He is also the founder of WeMontage.com, which turns your photos into repositionable wallpaper, and author of The More You Hustle, the Luckier You Get. So we're going to touch on all of those. We want to discover a little bit more about what pushed James over the line to come up with the crazy idea of wanting to be an entrepreneur. As we know, it looks fantastic from one side, but when we get to the dark side, the light side, as we know, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of joy, and there's a lot of growing. So welcome to the show, James. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here from Atlanta, USA.
Yes, thank you. Super excited to be with you, Jeff, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
So, James, when did you decide that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? What was it a moment of inspiration while you were in the shower? A lot of people talk about the shower these days. I don't use the shower. I've heard of the El Camino Trail as well. Maybe being chased by a bear in Alaska. I don't know. So.
Chased by some kangaroos, maybe? I don't know.
Oh, kangaroos will make it happen. I can tell you right now.
No, man. I've always been entrepreneurial, even from back in high school and in college. I had my own little production company, and I just always been entrepreneurial. And just at some point, I just, decided to quit monkeying around and trying to be what other people thought I should be and just be what I am.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very important, isn't it? And that's one of the biggest challenges as humans. Is the biggest job you have in life is to discover why you're actually here.
We talked about that. We met on a panel a couple weeks ago, speaking panel, and we talked about that. I said, as Mark Twain said, the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you figure out why. And the sooner you figure out why, the easier life and more enjoyable life might get for you.
Yeah. And I think there's another part of that which I sort of rediscovered in terms of the motivation will keep me motivated. In other words, why are you here? And then the other part of the question with the why, and I'm not talking so much Simon Sinek's type of why, I'm talking, okay, why am I doing this? In other words, what are all the reasons that you're doing this? And I think if you can get a whole bunch of those together, then it gets much more powerful. I'm doing this to provide a better life for my children. I'm doing this because I want to put a beautiful home over their head. I want to be able to be free and do what I want to do. If you start stacking those up, I think it gets really powerful.
Yeah, I like that.
But so your first, I suppose, okay, so I suppose as a kid playing as a kidpreneur, because let's keep with the theme of parentpreneur. Okay, the kidpreneur. So what's some of the things that the kidpreneur do?
Well, it's just I was selling. I had an uncle who he was importing accessories from Egypt.
Right.
And I got some of them from him, and I was selling those. This is back in high school.
Yeah.
This is back in high school. And then when I got to college, we had the production company. We were flying DJs in from New York. I went to Morehouse College here in Atlanta, and we were flying DJs in from New York and other places around the country, and we were having events and things like that, and having concerts and such. So, I just had the entrepreneurial bug for a long time, and I majored in accounting in college, and I think my junior year I was number one in my class in accounting, but I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. And I remember
say that one more time.
Oh, I hated it, man. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's what you're supposed to spend the rest of your life doing.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Man, I'm good at most things I put my mind to. I mean, I don't say that braggingly, but if I put my mind to it, I can become at least competent at it in most instances. Except for my son, he beats my butt in Xbox One Injustice 2, and I'm just so mad about it.
No, I don't know. That's terrible.
He's 8 years old. As much as I practice, he kills me. But I digress. It makes me
I
so, and he talks junk too, you know.
well, I think the thing there is, I think he spends a lot more time on Xbox than you do.
A little bit, you know. I have it here. He don't have it at his mom's house, but yeah, he's just. I'm just not built for that thing. But I play because he likes to play, and I'm super competitive. So anyway, but yeah, like my senior year, I wanted to change my major, and I kind of hated it, and I slipped to number two. Oh my God. And I wanted to change my major, but my parents wouldn't let me, and that was a big mistake. You know, yeah, I never should have done that. But you know, there's no point in dwelling on that. It's just all we have is today, this moment right now. So what are we going to do with the time in the moment in the present?
Yep. Yep.
So that's what I'm focused on.
Okay. So you went to college. Then what
Yeah.
was your sort of after that? Did you go and get a day job? What happened next?
Yeah, so I went and got a job in accounting as an auditor. I mean, do I look like an auditor to you? Do I talk like an auditor to you? Do I seem like an auditor to you? Would an auditor be wearing a Black ParentPreneurs Matter t-shirt? Probably not. Right? So, you know, did that and ultimately went back to business school. And even that was just really, you know, yeah. So I graduated from business school, got an MBA. And, you know, after my MBA, I took the first entrepreneurial plunge. And this was in the pre-iPad era. I had this crazy idea, you know, this is back when Tiger Woods, you know, burst on the scene. And so I'm out of business school, early 2000s. And a lot of my friends who happened to be black were huge into golf. I was a big golf nut. You know, I was like, I'm going to start a lifestyle magazine for black golf enthusiasts. And I'm looking at the business model of magazines at the time, and I'm like, you know, this business model doesn't make sense. You know, there's
Hmm.
such huge printing and shipping costs. I'm like, and at the time there was this new online digital delivery or this digital delivery platform coming online. A lot of the big magazines were adopting. It was very early. So I redid the business plan at the time. I don't do business plans anymore, but at the time I redid the business plan. It's a waste of time. I redid the business plan, and we went to a digital delivery model. And I remember we had everything ready to go. And a couple of key people who had significant magazine experience and some would-be investors sent me to so they could tell them if they thought the idea was any good. They thought my business plan was crazy. Oh, this is not doable. This is crazy. Like, not so crazy now with all those magazines going out of business, right? All going to a digital delivery system, right? Not so crazy now. So that was then. And then back in 2011, I got the crazy idea. You know, my wife at the time was watching HGTV, interior design show called The Novograds, and Home by Novograds. And they were in a family's basement covering the walls with these amazing, big, beautiful photos on something they call photo wallpaper. And it was the proverbial aha moment.
Okay.
Clouds parted, angels singing, you know, like, yo, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, not for nothing, I wanted one. I had a super dope wedding in Dominican Republic, amazing pictures. I wanted one. So, you know, I'm just nuts, man. I charge heads first down the path, clean out my savings. I'm a non-technical founder, which means I don't know how to write a lot of code, but this product required a very complicated custom software algorithm type solution. Like, who does that? So, I was very fortunate to get into. I was living in Northeast Wisconsin at the time. We were 100 miles away from friends and family. Like, she was pregnant with the twins. You know, I'm working on this startup. She's like, she wants to have kids, so we do IVF. We put in two, we get two. I'm like, yay! I'm like, holy crap! Like, I'm out of money trying to get this startup going. And I got into the accelerator. The timing of it all was going to be great. The kids were supposed to be born end of March. The accelerator was ending first week in April. I'm like, all right, this is great. I know I'm going to go through this accelerator. I think we were in generators like second cohort, like super early in the generator days. And generator's killing it right now. But we were, I think we were the second cohort maybe. And I got the 2 days before I was going into the accelerator, we had to prematurely deliver the twins. They were 3 months early. They
Right.
only weighed two pounds a piece. So an accelerator was a 2-hour drive each way. And, you know, those were some really dark days, man.
Mm.
You know, back and forth to the NICU, I mean, I woke up every morning at like 2 a.m. because I couldn't sleep from the stress of it all. I
Mm-hmm.
had a super talented developer on my team. He was a really brilliant kid, but he was very unreliable. He had his own demons. He was like a recovering alcoholic,
Okay.
but brilliant. Like the
Yeah.
kid was brilliant when I tell you. But he was super unreliable. And I mean, you would have walked up to me and say, "Hey, good morning, James." I would have started crying, man. It was a mess. So
Mm.
anyway, thankfully we got through the program. We got to demo day. Right before demo day, we went out to go on stage to pitch to a room of would-be investors. I got a call from an angel investor who had previously pitched, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to fill your entire round." I'm like, "What do you mean?" "We're going to give you $250,000." And I just dropped to my knees and thank God. And so we raised the money. We launched the business. The kids came home eventually, and they're doing well. So
That's
thankful for
great.
all that.
How old are they now?
They'll be 9 in a month or 3 weeks or whatever.
Wow. Okay.
Crazy, man.
That's a pretty tough time.
Well, yeah, but that is what catapulted me to write the book, because when I started the business, much like you, I I started a blog.
Mm.
So I knew I was going to start a blog talking about my experience as a parent and an entrepreneur, and use the content from the blog as inspiration to write a book to inspire parentpreneurs around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what I did. So in 2017, I self-published The More You Hustle, The Luckier You Get. You can be a successful parentpreneur. So that was 2017. Some have called it the realest book about entrepreneurship they ever read.
Right.
And then in after I wrote the book, I said, all right, I'm going to one day sell my business for 40, $50 million, which, by the way, we raised just enough money to fail with We Montage. It's
Okay.
still around, but it's basically a zombie. I mean, the website needs so much TLC. There's so much technical debt on that thing. Maybe it's going to get fixed one of these days. We still get some repeat customers, but maybe not. Like, whatever. I actually have a new project I'm spinning up, which I'll tell you about in a second.
Yeah.
But so I was going to sell this thing. This is my idea. I got these crazy ideas in my head. Am I right, Jeff?
Mm.
I'm going to sell this thing. I'm going to take $1 million of my own money. I'm going to seed a foundation for parentpreneurs, because it's really freaking hard being a parent and an entrepreneur. It's just nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And then, um, and then the world over here fell apart. Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, all these things, George Floyd, all these things started happening. I had my own personal Karen experience. I don't know if you guys in Australia know what a Karen is, but it's just like a crazy racist white woman who tries to call the police on black people. So
Right.
in
No, I
my
haven't,
in my
haven't heard of that term actually.
yeah, so my subdivision, I live in a really nice neighborhood here in Atlanta. I had 2 experiences with this woman here in my backyard. I had to call the police on her, file a trespass warrant, and then I was looking at all the wealth inequality data from the Federal Reserve. At the time, the median white family wealth was 10x that of the median black family wealth. So I added all these things together, and I said, you know what? Like, screw this. I'm going to do this foundation. This is going to be for black parentpreneurs, because we really need to help them out, and we need resources and tools to help close this wealth gap,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, we'll all be much better off if we could get that done. Like,
Exactly.
all of us, like a rising tide lifts all boats. So that was my idea. And this was right at the beginning of COVID. And I'm talking a lot. If you want some questions, pop in, just feel free to stop me. I'll just keep talking.
No, no.
Um, at the beginning of COVID, and everybody was running around, oh my God, the sky's falling. And I'm like, all right, I know within every crisis exists opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, where is the opportunity, God?
Mm.
I'm literally our God. Where's the opportunity, right? And I found, like, when you do that kind of thing, you open yourself to inspiration, you get answers. And I did. I was having a chance coffee meeting with some acquaintances, and they were like, why are you waiting to sell We Montage, which basically is, like I said, a zombie. That's not going to happen anytime soon, right? Why don't you do it now? And I was like, yeah, do it now. So I was like, I'm doing this thing. And then everything else happened, and I decided to make it for Black parentpreneurs. And then, at the time when I initially said I was going to do this, I was going back and forth with Brad Feld and David Cohn, who are co-founders of Techstars, which is arguably the preeminent global tech startup accelerator.
Yep.
And they were like, this is interesting, but nonprofits are hard. And like, look, they're not wrong. It's a fundraising grind. They're definitely not wrong about that. But for me, the thing that they understand, I told them, I said, I've had to scrap and scrape for every single blade of grass on the field of life. So as a black person, telling me something is hard is not a reason to not do it.
Yeah.
So I'm doing it regardless. And so out of the blue one day, I got an email from Brad. I love this story so much. I got an email out of the blue from Brad Feld, who is like, Brad is like top of the food chain venture capitalist. Are you familiar with limited partners, LPs?
No, I'm not, but yeah.
Excuse me. The LPs are the people who write the checks to the venture capitalists who write the checks to the entrepreneurs.
Okay, right. Okay.
Right? He's a VC and an LP.
Right.
Big time, right? I get an email from him out the blue one day, and just the subject line I said was, are you game for a 30-minute Zoom? And I'm like, well, hell yeah. Like, who doesn't want a 30-minute conversation with Brad? And I'm like, but was there anything else? There was nothing in the body of the emails. And he's like, I just want to know what 2 things you're working on addressing racial injustice and inequality that I could put my time, money, or attention toward. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. So we get on the Zoom, and I say, remember that foundation thing I was talking to you about a couple months ago? He goes, yeah. I said, well, no, that's just for black people. He said, I'm so glad you did that. And this is the part, Jeff. He goes, well, what would a 12-month operating plan look like? Why don't you just throw it up in a Google Doc, and I will co-create it with you?
Wow.
I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Let's go. Let's go. So I got that thing right back to him. I don't mess around. He said, this is a great first start. He said, what would a 6-month plan look like? Bam. Got that right back to him. And he said, okay, assume 3 things, one of which is a $50,000 seed grant from my foundation to start this foundation.
Yep.
Boom. So there we go. I mean, 6 months later, we launched right away with impact, and we're doing great work and collaborating with Seth Godin. I assume you know Seth Godin is.
Yep, I do.
I mean, Seth's an ally and a supporter. Like, he's been giving scholarships to the people in my community to his Akimbo Marketing Workshop, which has been transformative for me in how I think about who I serve and why, and how I talk about what we do in the foundation. And I was just emailing with him today. They're spinning up another cohort of that in January, and presumably we'll have some more scholarships for the people in our community for that. So then he gave us another $50,000, Brad did, and then they got us into the Techstars Foundation Accelerate Equity Program, which is phenomenal because they do some fundraising matching and just really an expansion of social capital, because everybody talks about the dearth of financial capital and access of financial capital to financial capital for black entrepreneurs. But the one thing people don't talk a lot about is the dearth of social capital. And I contend is as problematic and in some ways more problematic than a lack of financial capital, because a lack of social capital will keep you from executing your would-be brilliant ideas. And worse than that, it keeps you from imagining what's possible.
Yep.
And it was Albert Einstein that said imagination is more important than knowledge. So I'll stop talking now and let you ask some questions. Sorry, just hog the whole thing.
So maybe we get...
Making your job easier, Jeff.
Oh, well, that's if I'm good at questioning, then I get long answers. That's the reality.
Awesome.
So let's dive a little bit more into what social capital means to you, and what I think needs to be done more on the social capital level. Because look, venture capital is all sexy, right? It's okay, raise money, get people investing in companies. So there's lots of money washing around globally because zero interest rates, money's got to go somewhere. In fact, cash is actually negative in earning now.
Right.
So there's a lot of cash chasing good investment. So talk to me more about social capital.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's exactly what you think it is. It's just like networks and relationships.
Yep.
And, if you go back to the wealth chart, I mean, your network, as you know, is your net worth. I don't know if that's a saying over in Australia, but it's a saying here in the U.S. Your network equals your net worth. And if you don't have the net worth, that's because you don't have the network. And if you don't, looking at the net worth chart, we don't have those relationships and those networks to help us increase our net worth. And because we don't have it, in some instances, we don't even really understand how to move effectively to build social capital. So that's actually one of the things I'm really grateful for, is by virtue of the people who are sponsors and mentors and friends, and just watching how they move, emulating those things, and listening and learning. So I'm very thankful for that. And the other thing is, we have to be willing to spend our social capital on other people. So for me, if you join the Parentpreneur Foundation community, uh, I will quickly spend my social capital on you to help you get something significant accomplished. I'm not stingy with my social capital. I
Yeah.
don't have a scarcity mentality. Excuse me. And one of the key things that I've learned that's been life altering for me is this Techstars quote unquote mantra of give first.
Yep.
Hashtag give first.
Yep.
A great book is Adam Grant's Give and Take, if anyone's interested in learning about that. It's a great book, but for me, the give first mindset is just a wonderful way to spend and grow your social capital,
Yep.
just organically and effortlessly and happily, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's I just made a note about that book because I love that. So for me, when I started blogging, for example, it was all about just giving, and I had no business plan. It was just an idea, and I created content and shared it. It's basically the idea behind that was to share what my insights were about the rise of social media and where I think it was going, and where it was. And what I loved about social media, for example, was and blogging, is that you had to give till it hurts. Right, in other words, give away premium content, and the traditional business model was don't tell anyone, don't give away your best stuff. Right,
Yeah.
so, but the other thing is, and this I loved about social media. I don't know if you've heard of the Dunbar number. Dunbar number is that, and it gets into thing talking about weak ties and strong ties. In other words, you can only have a relationship with so many people. Okay, so in face-to-face type communications. In other words, your network, and this is why tribes break up. They hit about 150 people and they break up because it starts not being so cohesive. What I loved about social media was, and beyond the 150, the sort of stronger ties, you move into a place called weak ties. And what's really cool about that weak ties is that social media allows you to have all these weak ties with thousands of people in the tribe of the same culture and belief, or beliefs and interests. So, especially on the early days of social media, it was very organic before algorithms crept in and stopped you reaching your tribe because Facebook wanted to make money. So, that's what I loved about social media early on, was it enabled you to reach your tribe globally and build weak ties as well as strong ties.
Yeah.
And that was
By the way,
fascinating.
your audio is getting a little choppy again. When you
Okay.
started talking, your audio's choppy and your video's choppy too.
Okay.
So your video's not syncing up with your audio now. Just FYI.
Okay. All right. Thanks. We'll cut it out, but they might better stitch it up with the editing, hopefully, because we do.
Yep,
see
yep.
what
I just wanted to give you a heads up. So
Okay. Good.
just giving
Thanks.
you a heads up. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the other thing that interests me in what you mentioned was income inequality, and just read a fantastic book on the rise and fall of empires, the principles of by Ray Dalio. And Ray Dalio, being one of the richest men in the world, the owner of Bridgewater, CEO, founder, is very strong on that. The fall of empires has also been linked to inequality. The French Revolution, for example, the haves and the have-nots. And I totally agree with that, in that we need to reduce that inequality gap. And that's what you're trying to do, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what we're doing. We're doing our small part. So, for example, we just we're always experimenting. So we have this program that we launched a couple months ago. We ran into some snags, but you spin these things up, you learn from them, and you improve them. But what we're doing is standing in the gap for Black founders. A lot of people will say, hey, if you're starting a business, go to your friends and family for startup capital, right? But again, going back to that wealth chart, our friends and family don't have the money for that. So what do? So in our Parentpreneur Foundation, we're collaborating with one of our members now. She runs an organization called Esteem, ESSTEEM. They do these equalathons and these hackathons, and we're going to pay her $5,000 to build MVP app prototypes for members of our community. So what does this do? This means they can get an app built that they can get user feedback from, and they will be able to show something to a potential investor. It's not just, hey, I have an idea. Like I actually have a prototype with some feedback, something I can build on. So we're standing in the gap from that standpoint. So it's not solving the problem, but we're doing our part. We're raising awareness by making a stink about it on social media. That's my favorite thing to do, by the way, make a stink on social media. So we're doing that, and we just completed another round of grants. This is our 5th round. Now we just gave away $30,000, $1,000 in grants to 30 Black parentpreneurs in conjunction with the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center, which is the nonprofit entity of the NASDAQ Stock Exchange here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm super excited about that. And some people are like, oh, what's $1,000 going to do? And I look at those people like, well, clearly you're not a super hustling entrepreneur, because if you are, $1,000 could do a lot for you.
Mm. Well, I started.
So
I started with I think $10 a domain name.
Right. Exactly.
And I worked out how to set up my own WordPress blog. And me, again, like you, I'm not techie. So I wrestled and wrangled with that dude for years, doing a lot of my own stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I totally get it. But we're looking at a project to help people launch their own side hustles, because, in other words, to reduce the risk of becoming an entrepreneur.
What does that mean? That's hilarious.
Well, you have a day job, and then when you get home from your day job, I know it's a challenge with children, as you totally mentioned, and I totally get that. But to actually, because today we've got the technology and the platforms and low-cost tools to launch an online business, haven't we?
That's right. And you have these no-code tools, which, by the way, so I always have so many things going on. So during the pandemic over here, I virtual schooled my twins, which was incredibly hard.
Yeah.
And now my kids are 8, so they're not fully vaxxed. They just got their first shot. They get their second one Friday, but because they're not vaccinated, that means I've been playing after school care, which means I only have 50. I'm at 50% work capacity, right? But so when January starts, when they go back to school after the holidays, they'll be back in aftercare, which means I get half my day back, which is great because I'm actually working on a new startup, which is, it's called Kabila. And Kabila is I used the word tribe a little while ago, which I thought was cool. Kabila is Swahili for tribe.
Right.
And Kabila connects co-founders building diverse tech startups. And the reason I'm doing that, because as founder and CEO of the ParentPreneur Foundation, I've been sitting in some really interesting spaces with people allocating capital, and they're all trying to figure out how to flip the script and get capital into the hands of more underestimated founders. And I'm reading the tea leaves, and as Wayne Gretzky would say, you got to skate to where the puck's going to be. One famous hockey player, and I'm skating to where I think the puck's going to be, because I think it's going to be a capital raising superpower if you have a diverse team with a tech startup. So come January, when my kids go back to school, we're going to be going full bore with that. We're actually building an MVP prototype app, and we're using a no-code tool to do that. I have a technical co-founder this time, so he's building all that. But like you said, we have all these tools that make it easier to do these things.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize how low cost they are and how easy they actually are to use today. Mm-hmm. Like even when I started in 2009, it's pretty clunky. Like just trying to record a video and upload it. Now we've got Zoom. Okay, we used Skype, and Skype made it. Look, Skype was good.
How does Skype drop the ball and Zoom just crushed all of it? How did that happen?
Okay, but Skype was owned by a big corporation that it wasn't their core competency. That's what I think it was.
Yeah.
And also, there's a lot of companies that start with what I call legacy platforms, and whereas the new player comes along and disrupts by providing much easier user interfaces, customer experience, and Zoom, as we know, and we're recording today on Zoom, makes it so much easier. I can record in separate channels for audio, video. It actually automatically sets up the upload into my own files, or if I can save it in the cloud as well. So Zoom makes it easy, and that's a challenge for all of us, isn't it? So a lot of people don't realise how easy it is in one sense. It's not easy, but the tools and technology. The challenge for all entrepreneurs, as we both know, is that converting ideas into action that works is really the biggest challenge.
Well, yeah, I mean, ideas are worthless, right? It's the execution of a brilliant
Yeah,
idea that matters.
exactly.
Everybody's got an idea.
Yeah.
It's worthless.
So, what's your big vision then for Parentpreneurs Foundation?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And so we have at the heart of our community is an online community. We built it on Mighty Networks, which I'm super excited about because it's not on Facebook. So I own it. I'm not at the mercy of the algorithms. I don't have to pay anybody to see my stuff. I mean, we pay to keep our stuff hosted there, but I post something, everybody in the community, they see it.
Hmm.
So it's great. I love it so much. So at the heart of that is that, and that's important because as Seth Godin helped me realize, you know, he comes in and does these conversations with us periodically. And when I was in his workshop, he talked about tension. And I was struggling with that particular assignment. I was like, what's the tension with the Parentpreneur Foundation? I couldn't figure it out. So he came in and we were talking, and he said, if I'm on an airplane and somebody's like, well, we're going to go skydiving, jump out of this plane, Seth. He's like, well, the tension for him is like, what if the parachute doesn't open? Right? That's tension.
Hmm.
So for us is, we're all on this, what if we're trying to leave a legacy for our beautiful black children? Like, what if we fail? That's the tension, but it doesn't matter because in our community, we all have each other's back on this rocky journey to leave a legacy for our beautiful black children. So it doesn't matter. So we won't fail because we have each other's back.
Hmm.
So the goal is to build a community around the world. We actually have people globally now. We won our last grant. We have a woman who was in Berlin who got a grant from us. Super excited about that. She's doing great things in Berlin. Um, a global network of Black parentpreneurs, empowering them, doing more grants, but creating more opportunities for them, spinning up some startup studios. I think invariably we'll probably have a VC fund and be investing in some of these businesses directly. I think that's a logical endpoint for us. We'll be doing that eventually, but really just more people collaborating, building relationships, coming up, changing paradigms, expanding social capital, helping people get access to resources. We just helped one of our community members get to $250,000 for her business just directly through some connections we made for her. And we got, I mean, somebody just got a $500,000 term sheet as a direct result of the work that we're doing in the community. So more of that.
Hmm. I love the fact that you're trying to reduce inequality and in the
Yeah,
black entrepreneur community. I think that's fantastic. And I think
yeah.
um, you're trying to change the world in your own way, in your own niche. And I think that is just hats off to you,
I'm
James.
not
It's,
trying. I'm doing it.
well, you're trying to make a bigger impact than what you're currently doing. Let me
Yeah, we
say that bigger.
will.
Okay.
Yes, I promise you we will, Jeff.
Well, I think you're well on your way, and you've acted on the
I
idea
appreciate
and the
it.
inspiration, which is fantastic. Now, just before we finish up, I know you've got a hard finish because you're going to go and inspire your community with a live call. Um,
Yeah.
so, um, what are some of the takeaways as an entrepreneur that you've learned along the way that you'd like to share with our community and viewers and listeners?
Oh boy, that's a really good question.
Just two or
Man.
three.
Like,
One. I'm happy with
yeah,
one.
yeah, I think this is a message for entrepreneurs, particularly early stage entrepreneurs. And it goes back to what we talked about the give and take book and the give first mindset. And I'm guilty of this too. I was at least. People who are like super hustling and grinding and trying to make money and get the product market fit, and they're got all the things going on, right? And they're like, what do I have to give? Well, you have a lot to give. Like the scarcity mindset, it's a lie. You know, you can just share people's content on social media. Right? You can hold the door for someone. You can make an introduction to someone. Make sure your introductions are double-sided, by the way. That's another takeaway for you. Meaning if you want to somebody wanted to introduce me to you, Jeff, they need to ask me if I want to do that. They need to check with you first and make sure it's okay, and then make the introduction. I think single-sided introduction can be awkward and make people look bad. And
Intros are good.
actually,
Yep.
double-sided introduction. So that's the second thing, takeaway right there. But if you're an entrepreneur early stage in particular, like, don't fall into the trap of the scarcity mindset. Give, 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 give. And the main takeaway from that book, Give and Take, by the way, is, you have the most successful givers are the ones who give a lot, but they do so with their own personal interests in mind. And I know that's a little counterintuitive, but it's based on all their data and research, this is what they've shown. And just think about it. If you're in a relationship with someone and you give all the time, and they don't give anything back to you, well, you're probably going to be burnt out from that relationship, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. So yeah, just, give first. Don't be shy about helping other people. Share your social capital, particularly spend your social capital on Black entrepreneurs and Black founders, man. Like, we really could use help with that, because a lot of the rooms that, some of these influential white folks are in, we're not in those rooms. Mm-hmm. We're just not. Like, be an advocate for people. And I would say, get a mentor. Mentorship is great, but sponsorship is really greater than mentorship. And I like to jokingly say, mentors be like, hey, there's this great conference coming up. I saw it online. You should sign up. They're going to be some good speakers. Mm. Sponsors are like, hey, I know the people putting on this super great conference here. I recommended they put you on the paid speaking panel because I know the organizers. See the difference?
Yeah, absolutely.
Between a mentor and a sponsor. But it starts with mentorship, and it's incumbent upon you as the mentee to build the trust and cultivate that relationship to transform it or convert it into sponsorship. So those are three things there, I think.
Thank you very much. That's very insightful and very wise. And part of the reason I wanted to have you on the show is part of my mission is also to help reduce inequality, because I believe that we're all on the planet together. And as you said, a rising tide floats all boats, and why can't we share success around the world? And hats off to you that you're doing that. And
yeah, I appreciate you.
Yeah. So,
if you got any Black Parentpreneurs in Australia, man, I would love to connect with them. Like, we got room for them in our Parentpreneur Foundation community.
Yeah,
absolutely, we do.
Well, I'm sure we have. So I'll reach out and see if we can find some to introduce to you. And that brings up, how do they get in touch with you, James?
Great question. So I'm on the Twitters. I'm at James Oliver Jr., James Oliver Jr. on Twitter. Twitter for the foundation is ParentPreneur F. On Instagram, we're ParentPreneur Foundation. Don't use my personal Instagram page, but yeah, that's how you can reach me on Instagram there. I would start there. I'm super tethered, unhealthily so, to all that stuff, and I'm easy to reach.
And your ParentPreneur Foundation website URL, what's that?
ParentpreneurFoundation.org.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, at the end of the day, somebody's got to write a check so we can keep doing this work, right? So, if you have a heart for the work that we're doing, and if you want to be supportive, and look, so I'll say this last thing. If you want to support Black entrepreneurs, you have to support Black parentpreneurs. Why? Because the success or failure of a Black parentpreneur, the consequences are far greater than a stereotypical hoodie-wearing entrepreneur in their mama's basement, right? Because if you impact and empower the Black parentpreneur, you're potentially improving the quality of that parental unit, the mindset of the entrepreneur, the relationship with the child grows up and they raise a wonderful child they send out into the world. It's better for the Black community and the community overall. And it's a multiplicative effect. So go to ParentpreneurFoundation.org, click on the donate button, please. We could use your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing, James. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm glad I met you a week ago, and just wanted to share your gift with the world, in my own little world. And I look forward to hearing about the astounding success of ParentPreneur and Kabali, which you're working on as well. So,
yes, sir.
Thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, James.
My pleasure.